So what is happening in Beirut, in Lebanon's capital, and what is happening in Middle East? Yesterday we heard that how Israeli Prime Minister Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu was addressing the United Nations, and at the same time a precision attack was reported in the headquarters of Hezbollah in Beirut. And Israeli media claimed that perhaps the attack was so severe that Hezbollah Chief Hassan Nasrallah may have been killed in that attack. But what is happening in Lebanon? Why Israel is attacking in Beirut? What is happening in Gaza? So here is the latest about what is happening in the Middle East. So yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu, while he was addressing the United Nations, started threatening Iran and its proxies in the Middle East, saying that anybody who tries to threaten Israel or its existence will face consequences. And while he was making these comments in the United Nations, many aerial strikes were reported in Beirut. The IDF later claimed that this was a precision attack on one of the central headquarters of Hezbollah. Now, why is Israel attacking Lebanon? And this attack is started since Monday when we saw the pager attacks happening. Most of the Hezbollah commanders, its foot soldiers who use pagers, there was an explosion there and more than 1,000 people were injured. Many Hezbollah commanders were reportedly killed. And the very next day, then there was explosion in walkie-talkie and other electronic appliances in Lebanon. And multiple reports suggested that perhaps Israel had breached the consignment of these electronic devices, which was to be shipped to Israel, to Lebanon, to Hezbollah. And before it was handed over to Hezbollah, Israel managed to penetrate through it and planted explosive devices on it. And since Monday, more than 700 people have been killed. Hezbollah had been attacking Israel since October 8, a day after October 7 terror attack happened in Israel when hundreds of Hamas commanders entered into Israel and killed multiple people. And since then, Hezbollah has been attacking Israel to claim or to say that they are supporting the cause of Palestine and force Israel to accept a ceasefire in Gaza. So, and since then, for the last 1 year or so, Israel claims that they have to take very definitive action against Hezbollah so that its residents on the northern side of Israel, which shares its border with Lebanon and which has been under intense aerial attack and rocket attack from Hezbollah, they can return safely to those regions, because for the last 1 year, many Israeli residents on the northern side of Israel, which shares its border with Lebanon, have been under intense attack from Hezbollah, and that is why they have left that area and moved to other places. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the United Nations said that his target is to ensure that residents of Israel return to those northern areas which is under attack from Lebanon or from Hezbollah based in Lebanon. Now, since yesterday, Israel has intensified its attack on Lebanon, not just the Hezbollah central headquarters, but across Beirut, in southern Beirut, in northern Beirut, and many other areas, even in Syria, have come under attack from Israel. Israel says that this time it wants to completely finish Hezbollah so that the problem on the north gets over and all its residents move back to another region. But what is happening in Lebanon now? After the attack, many Lebanese citizens and residents of Beirut have been displaced. They are moving from one end to another. Israel claims that it has been forewarning the Lebanese citizens to leave a particular area, but even minutes after the warning, while the residents are moving, the aerial attacks commence. So there have been huge loss of life. In one of the attacks, which Israel claimed was a precision attack on Hassan Nasrallah, six buildings where residents were staying were floored to the ground, and that is why the situation is on the boil. Now, when Mr. Netanyahu started his speech at the United Nations, many Arab leaders and leaders of other nations left the entire podium, left the room there, while Israeli Prime Minister was addressing the nation. Now, what happens next? Iran claims that perhaps it will still support Hezbollah in Lebanon, but as of now, there has been no retaliation from Iran. But in the last 2 months, Israel has come under attack from Iraqi militias, Houthis in Yemen, as well as Hezbollah from Lebanon. Meanwhile, Israel is already fighting a war in Gaza with Hamas. All this while, the role of United States becomes very imminent, because all this while, the United States kept saying that they are working on a de-escalation plan, they are working on a ceasefire plan, but for both, whether it was a ceasefire plan with Hamas or a de-escalation plan with Hezbollah, both have not worked out because Israel has not accepted those proposals. Benjamin Netanyahu and his office earlier claimed that perhaps they will accept the proposal floated by US, but yesterday, when Netanyahu landed in New York, he clearly said that he's not going to accept any proposal until the problem of Hezbollah gets over. Now, what happens from here on? Will Iran, which runs the axis of resistance with its proxy militias in the Middle East, will join this entire conflict? Because all this while, since Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas chief, was killed in Tehran 2 months ago, Iran has not escalated the situation with Israel. But now the bigger question is that with all these proxy militias and Iran, will they launch a joint attack on Israel? The second question is that whether Israel go for a ground invasion in Lebanon, because since Hezbollah's many commanders have been killed in pager blasts, in aerial strikes, and if reports are to be believed whether Hassan Nasrallah has survived the attack or has been killed, Hezbollah certainly is at its lowest ebb. So will Israel go for a ground invasion since it senses that perhaps Hezbollah is at its weakest point? So all questions are on the mind right now whether Israel will choose to go into Lebanon for a ground invasion. The third question is what happens to the Arab leaders? Yesterday, many Arab leaders in an open session at United Nations said that we want to guarantee security for Israel if it accepts the two-state solution. The two-state solution means a state for Israel, a state for Palestine. Israel doesn't recognize Palestine as a state, and that is why we often hear this term two-state solution. From here on, what is very significant and what is very imminent is that the situation will escalate in Middle East, because Iran, if media reports are to be believed that Hassan Nasrallah has been killed, then Iran has certainly lost one of its strongest ally in the region, while many Hamas commanders have already been killed in Gaza. Israel continues to bombard the Beirut area and other areas of Lebanon and Syria as well, and all this while US claims that its ironclad support for Israel will continue.